Operations with fractions. So building off our knowledge from fractions and creating common denominators and being able to place them on a number line, we're going to work through our operations. So multiplying, dividing, adding, and subtracting. So to multiply fractions, all we need to do is you multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, and then simplify your solution where possible. To divide, what we do is we switch the division sign for a times, and we flip only the second fraction. So we find the reciprocal of that second fraction, and then we perform multiplication and simplify. To add or subtract fractions, you must have a common denominator. So first thing we need to do is find a common denominator and make equivalent fractions to have that denominator, and then we perform the operation. So your success criteria is that you can add, subtract, multiply, and divide fractions. And our life link is that often when cooking, when we use recipes, fractions are involved. So if we need to convert quantities throughout that recipe, we need to be able to use our fractions. So as our worked examples, our first one here are our multiplication. So 1/4 times by 2/3. We multiply across the numerators and then across the denominators. So here we will have 1 times 2 over 4 times 3, which is 2/12, which simplifies to 1/6. Number 2, again, we multiply across our numerators and across our denominators. So we're going to have 7 times 2 over 8 times 5, which is 14 over 40. Both of those are divisible by 2, so we've got 7/20. For C, again, we multiply across our numerators and across our denominators. So we're going to have 1 times 4 over 2 times 5. So you've got 4/10, which simplifies to 2/5. And our fourth and final multiplication one here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change these to improper fractions. So 1 times 5 is 5, plus 1 is 6. So we've got 6/5 times 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9. 9/4. So we go across our numerators, across our denominators. So 6 9s are 54, 5 4s are 20. Excuse me. We can then divide both of those by 2. So you've got 27 over 10. And then what you can do is you can simplify that. So in 27, there are 2 lots of 10 with 7 left over. So you would have 2 and 7/10. Okay, for worked example 2, we are doing our division. So first of all, what we need to do, we need to switch. So we switch our divide to a times and we flip the second fraction. So you're going to have 1/2 times 4 over 1. We then multiply across our numerators, across our denominators. So in this case here, we'll have 1 times 4 over 2 times 1, which is 4 over 2, which just equals 2. So our second example, we switch our operation and we flip our second fraction. So you're going to have 5/8 times 7/9. We go across our numerators, across our denominators. So 5 times 7 is 35, and 8 times 9 is 72. You then have a look at your fraction and you say, okay, do we have any common any common factors between the two? In this case, no, so that is in simplest form. Our next one, we switch our divide to a multiply, flip our second fraction. So here we're going to have 3/4 times 2 over 1. Across our numerator, across our denominator. 3 times 2 is 6, 4 times 1 is 4. So that's going to simplify to 3 over 2. Or you could also have 1.5. Okay, and our fourth one here. First thing I'm going to do is change our first fraction to an improper fraction. So 1 times 4 is 4, plus 1 is 5. So we've got 5/4 divided by 1/2. So we switch our operation to a times and flip our second fraction. So here we've got 5/4 times by 2 over 1. Multiply across the numerators, then across the denominators. So 5 times 2 is 10. 4 times 1 is 4. So that is 2 and 2/4. Or You could simplify it by dividing by 2 first, which would be 5 over 2, which would be 2.5. Okay, we then come into doing our addition. So remembering that for addition, we must have a common denominator. So first of all, I have a look here. I've got a quarter plus 2/4. Both have a denominator of 4. That is a common denominator, so I can go straight away. So then what I'm going to do is I have my common denominator written, and then I perform the addition. So 1 plus 2. So here, our solution is 3/4. Here, my denominators are 8 and 5. They are not common, so I need to get a common denominator first of all. So if I have 5 and 8, if I count in 5s, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. The first one that is going to have a common multiple of 8 is 40. So I need to go to a denominator of 40. So in order to do that, I have to multiply 8 times 5, and 3 times 5, and 5 times 8, 1 times 8. So we're going to have 3 times 5 is 15, so we've got 15 over 40 plus 8 over 40. So my common denominator is now 40, and I've got 15 plus 8, which is going to be 23 over 40. Okay, our next one, we've got 5 and 6. So if I count in 5s, the first value I'm going to get to that has a common multiple with 6 is 30. So if I write my denominator that's going to be common as 30, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do 5 times 6. So the numerator also has to be multiplied by 6, so that's 24. And to get from 6 to 30, I've got to times by 5. So 24 over 30 plus 25 over 30. Then what I need to do is my common denominator is 30. 24 plus 25 is 49. So I've got 49 over 30. And what I could do is I could write that as a mixed number, which would be 1 and 19/30. Okay, and our last addition, I'm going to change this to an improper fraction. So 2 times 5 is 10 plus 1 is 11. So we've got 11/5 plus 3/4. Common denominator of 5 and 4 would be 20. So what I need to do is I multiply 5 by 4 to get to 20. So we also need to do that to the numerator. To get from 4 to 20, I times by 5. Need to do that to the numerator as well. So here we've got 44 on 20 and 15 on 20, and they are being added. So 44 plus 15 is 59 on 20. And then I could simplify that by saying 2 and 19/20. Okay, and our last example is some subtraction. So again, we must have a common denominator. So for our first one here, we've got 3/5 and 4/5. Denominators are both 5, so that's fine to start straight away. So then what we're going to have is 3 minus 4 over 5, which will be -1/5. A second example, we've got denominators of 8 and 4. So 4 can become a denominator of 8 by multiplying by 2. So we're going to have 7/8 minus 2/8. So 7 minus 2 is 5. So we've got a solution there of 5/8. Having a look at our next one, we've got 5/6 and a half. Now 2 can become a denominator of 6 by timesing by 3. So we need to do that to our denominator and numerator. So then we have 5/6 minus 3/6. 5 minus 3 is 2. And we can simplify that to make it a third. Okay, for D, we want to make this first value an improper fraction. So 1 times 5 is 5, plus 2 is 7. So we've got 7/5 minus 3/4. Common denominator of 5 and 4 is 20. So to get from 5 to 20, I times by 4. 4 to 20, I times by 5. And we do the same to our numerator. I'm then going to have 28 over 20 minus 15 over 20. Now 28 minus 15 is 13, so we have 13/20 as our solution. Okay, and for E, once again, I'm going to make this an improper fraction, so 2 times 7 is 14, plus 1 is 15, so we've got 15/7 minus 3/5. Common denominator of 5 and 7 would be 35, so I'm going to multiply 7 by 5 as well as its numerator, and 5 by 7 as well as its numerator. So here we've got 75 over 35 minus 21 over 35. We then perform that subtraction, so 75 minus 21 is 54. So we got 54 out of 35. We then have a look and say, okay, are there any common factors between 54 and 35, which there aren't, but we could write this as a mixed number, so we could have 1, and then so 54 minus 35 is 19, so you'd have 1 and 19 35ths. Okay, and that is our operations with fractions.